Hey, good morning, happy campers. Hope everybody's doing well today. Oh, I'm not too bad actually. Thanks for asking. So, I've stumbled upon a very interesting story. Today we're going to take a look into the crimes and arrest of Eric Mcdavid, who was arrested in 2006, convicted in 2007, but then let out in 2015 due to 2,500 pages of evidence that was withheld from the investigation, evidence that was potentially useful for his defence. So our story starts in the summer of 2004. Eric Mcdavid, then 26 years old, was in Iowa for an annual gathering of self-described anarchists. Mcdavid had come from his parents' home outside Sacramento, train hopping the 1,700-mile journey and scavenging for food wherever he could. An idealistic young man with a shaved young head and a thick red beard, Mcdavid had been drawn to activism following the 9/11 terrorist attacks when his parents gave him a copy of Michael Moore's book, Dude, Where's My Country? Mcdavid began to attend protests in the San Francisco area, gradually gravitating towards anti-government views. In Iowa, Mcdavid was staying with other activists in a farmhouse with a large porch. They were attending a conference which was described in the gatherings literature as an event for anarchists in pursuit of a freer and more joyous world. Activists would come and go from the house, talking and smoking cigarettes or pot on the porch. After travelling with a few activists to pick up a new member, Mcdavid spotted her. Short and petite, no more than 120 pounds, with pink hair and a camouflage miniskirt. She said her name was Anna. He was quiet on the ride back, impressed and slightly intimidated by the story she told of hitchhiking from Florida with truckers. Mcdavid recalled that Anna slided up to him on the porch. "So when are we going to bed?" she asked. Mcdavid looked at his friend, whose eyebrows shot up in surprise. "As soon as I get done with this cigarette," he responded. Mcdavid went upstairs and unfurled his sleep sack, offering to share it with Anna. She refused, which confused Mcdavid, but she was flirtatious for the rest of the gathering and Mcdavid became enamoured. She told him that she was 24 years old and had spent time in Iraq in the National Guard, which turned her against her government. Anna says, "If you're asking if it made me angry and wanna, destroy it," she'd say later to one of Mcdavid's friends, then the answer would be yes. But you see, none of this was true. Anna wasn't even an activist, and that wasn't even her real name, which at the time was Zoe Elizabeth Voss. She was actually a paid FBI informant. Anna would go on to lead Mcdavid and two other activists in their 20s in a loose plot to bomb targets in Northern California. Maybe in the name of the Earth Liberation Front, or maybe not. Fitting for the muddied plot, their motivation was as unclear as their targets. Anna, at the direction of the FBI, made the entire plot possible, providing the transportation, money, and a cabin in the woods that the FBI had wired up with hidden cameras. Anna even provided the recipe for homemade explosives drawn up by the FBI bomb experts. Members of the group suggested, in conversations with her, that they regarded her as their leader. So, who is Anna, and what's her story? In the fall of 2003, Anna was 17 years old and a sophomore at a South Florida community college. Eager to impress her professor, she proposed an extra credit assignment, infiltrating protests at the upcoming free trade agreement of the Americas Summit in Miami. "I wanted to figure out what they were doing and why they were interested in doing what they were doing," Anna said at Mcdavid's trial. "So I went to Goodwill and I got some ratty clothes because I knew the protesters were more into a grunge lifestyle than your average Old Navy or Gap lifestyle." She wasn't a natural spy. Protest organisers suspected a plan and shut her off their meetings. The next day, she showed up again, this time in a mask, and managed to attend a meeting where organisers discussed their plans. After Anna presented the report to her class, a classmate who was a state law enforcement agent asked if he could share the paper with his bosses. Anna agreed. Soon, she received a call from the Miami Police Department, the lead agency during the protest. "We have some questions about what you did, what you saw," Anna recalled them saying. "Would you mind coming in this afternoon?" When Anna arrived, she was greeted by two police officers and an FBI agent who asked if she'd be willing to monitor protests at the upcoming G8 Forum in Sea Island, Georgia, as well as the 2004 Democratic and Republican National Conventions. She'd be undercover, they made clear. She signed up immediately. For the FBI, Anna was a great find, an informant young enough to look the part of the environmental and animal rights activist she would be infiltrating. As in Muslim communities after 9/11, the FBI created undercover stings that provided the means and opportunity for left-wing activists to cross the line into violent action. While far fewer in number than the stings against Muslims, the stings on left-wing activists were just as egregious. For example, an FBI informant led 5 members of the Occupy movement, at least one of whom had been treated for mental health issues, in a plot to bomb a bridge in Ohio. The FBI came up with the plot and financed it. An undercover informant provided the purported bomb. The government's interest in McDavid appears to have begun in February 2005, when the FBI arrested a man named Ryan Lewis for his role in planting 5 incendiary devices in Auburn, California, near Sacramento. Lewis, who had pleaded guilty and was sentenced for 6 years in prison, was a friend of McDavid's. After Lewis's arrest, FBI agents went to McDavid's parents' house, but McDavid, something of a drifter, at the time wasn't there. Anna provided the FBI with a way to gather information about him. Anna and McDavid exchanged emails after meeting at the activist convention in Iowa. In one email Anna sent, which was among the newly released documents, Anna explicitly suggests the promise of a relationship. "I think you and I could be great," she wrote on June 27, 2005, just weeks before the next convention in Indiana. But we have lots of kinks to work out. I hope in Indiana we can spend more quality time together and really chat about life and other things. In his reply, McDavid didn't miss the "our things" cue. "Hey Chica, as far as us being great, that I think is an understatement, along with the lots of kinks to work out. But if you ain't learning, you ain't living. And I do think we could learn a lot from each other. I do think that Indiana would be a good space to start some of the things, but I'd like to look into doing something independently from the scene in the near future too. I think that I'd throw a different light on the subject which could be helpful, but that's for a future discussion. Now as far as plans, you know I don't have those things anymore, only ideas." In another email leading up to their Indiana meeting, McDavid made his feelings clear. "Totally miss you. You're never far from my thoughts or heart. Guess I've been fighting that last part a bit. Okay, a lot," he signed. "Much love, me." By then, Anna was working with Special Agent Torres, who was based in the FBI's Philadelphia office. In October 2005, a collection of McDavid's electronic and handwritten messages were provided to the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit in Quantico, Virginia, for behavioral insight into Eric McDavid. According to an FBI memo, the unit's analysis and the fact that Anna received such specific guidelines, key pieces of evidence that the defense had been seeking before the trial, were made public only in January of this year. At trial, Anna testified that the Behavioral Analysis Unit had offered advice, but it was not disclosed that the FBI psychologist had actually reviewed McDavid's messages. They said, "If he makes another advance at you, what you need to say to him to calm him, to mollify him," Anna testified. She was instructed not to shoot him down outright. Instead, she was advised to tell him, "We need to put the mission first, there's time for romance later." Anna and McDavid saw each other again in 2005 at the next activist convention. Anna told her FBI handler and later said on an eyewitness stand that McDavid expressed his interest in violence then. He said that he had gotten a bomb recipe for C4 from an individual in West Virginia, and his plan was to make little C4 bombs, Anna testified. But this alleged conversation was not recorded. Anna was the only source, and McDavid had denied he said it. Could Anna be trusted? Among the documents released years after McDavid's conviction were FBI reports that requested a polygraph examination for Anna to make sure she was telling the truth. Anna also told her handlers that McDavid had 2 co-conspirators in his supposed bomb plot. Anna claimed that Lauren Weiner, a Philadelphia art student who was 20 years old and went by the nickname Ren, told her that McDavid invited her to Zach Jensen, a 20-year-old sometime travel companion of McDavid's who went by the nickname Ollie, to join the plot. Yeah, the plot, or whatever it really was going nowhere. McDavid had returned to the West Coast and dropped out of contact with her. So the FBI decided to jumpstart the plot. We formulated a plan to get me out to the West Coast under the guise of a sick aunt that I was visiting, Anna recounted at a trial. Anna bought a plane ticket for Wiener to fly to Sacramento in the fall of 2005. They met up with Jensen and drove to McDavid's parents' house outside Sacramento. It was November 18, 2005. As they arrived, McDavid told them, "Just so everybody's on the same page, you're walking into a house of a known anarchist." He was joking about his friendship with Ryan Lewis and how FBI agents had come to his parents' house after Lewis's arrest. They hung around McDavid's house, smoking marijuana, talking and eating dinner, before finally moved into the backyard to sit around a fire pit, where they discussed the alleged plot. Anna led the conversation, pressuring the group to come up with a concrete plan. Nothing was specific, it was all talk, most of it encouraged by Anna. McDavid maintains that everything he said was part of an effort to impress Anna because he wanted a sexual relationship with her. The next morning, as Anna and McDavid drove in the Chevy wired by the FBI cameras, McDavid made clear that he wanted more out of their relationship. The uncovered video of their conversation was among those obtained by the intercept and field of vision. As 2005 ended, Anna met with her FBI handlers in Philadelphia. They faced a predicament. Anna needed to return to California with an explosive recipe, but they couldn't take the risk of providing a working recipe. We ended up sitting down with some bomb technicians from the Philadelphia FBI office, and we put together a recipe that could be sent to him that was basically a safe bomb, Anna said at the trial. It wasn't a bomb, it wasn't an explosive, but it was the initial interior part of an explosive. In January 2006, the FBI rented a 2-bedroom cabin in Dutch Flat, a wooded area between Sacramento and Reno, Nevada. The Bureau also leased a maroon Chevy for Anna. Both the cabin and the car were wired with recording devices. Wiener and Jensen were both back on the East Coast as well. Anna had arranged to pick them up and drive straight through to California. Anna told them that she'd rented the car and cabin using money she'd made from being a stripper in Florida. During the ride out west on January the 7th, 2006, Jensen told Anna, in one of the undercover recordings, that he was suspicious of her. Anna had told the FBI that McDavid had invited Wiener and Jensen into the plot, yet Jensen was expressing surprise at the idea that the plot was led by McDavid. Jensen would later testify against McDavid, but following the trial, he stated in a sworn affidavit that the government had bullied him into supporting its narrative. Anna, Wiener and Jensen picked up McDavid the next day, on January 8th, having driven 3,000 miles. The trio had already developed a sort of common language. Anna, a Star Wars fan, had been calling Wiener a Jawa for how she appeared when she wore a hoodie. This was the government's supposed eco-terrorist cell on the make, and they were arguing not about bombs and attacks, but about Star Wars characters. For Anna and the government, it was difficult to get the group beyond meaningless conversations like this. In every attempt, McDavid, Wiener and Jensen rebuffed Anna's encouragement to come up with a timeline, a plan, anything that required a commitment. On January the 10th, 2006, after 2 days of hanging around the cabin together and smoking marijuana, Anna expressed frustration that they weren't moving towards or translating their talk into action. They visited the Nimbus Dam, an enormous electrolyte facility on the American River, as well as the Institute of Forest Genetics. They also shopped at a Walmart for supplies for the bomb recipe Anna provided: canning jars, a car battery, coffee filters, bleach, ammonia, mixing bowls and a single plate hot burner. So, at the cabin, McDavid began mixing the bomb recipe, the fake one the FBI had written. He combined bleach and ammonia and boiled the liquid on the hot plate, as instructed. He turned off the burner to let the chemical mix cool, also as instructed. What no one accounted for was the weather. It was January 12th, cold outside, and the Pyrex bowl cooled too quickly on the metal burner. It cracked, spilling the chemicals onto the ground. The tension began to grow. Anna was having trouble getting the group to commit to more than playing around with the bomb recipe and talking about things they might do one day. "I don't like this amorphous crap," Anna said. "I wish one day we could keep to the damned plan. I wish one day you guys could stick to a list. I don't like how I always have to bend to fit your schedules. We're all bending, Weiner said. Anna, frustrated, walked out of the cabin and down to where the FBI agents were monitoring what was happening. Torres, her FBI handler, met her on the road a short walk from the cabin. At McDavid's trial, he recalled what she told him. I can't do this anymore, she said. I'm going back to Philadelphia. I'm done. Torres then made the call. They'd arrest the group the next day. Anna returned to the cabin. Alright, tomorrow we're going to go into town, get another Pyrex ball, come back here, Anna said, setting the agenda. The next morning, the four went to Kmart to purchase more supplies. They split into two groups, Weiner and Jensen, McDavid and Anna. Weiner and Jensen were still in the store by the time McDavid and Anna returned to the car. McDavid hopped onto the trunk and lit a cigarette. Anna sat down into the driver's seat. As Weiner and Jensen were walking back, McDavid heard the car's automatic locks engage. A swarm of black vehicles surrounded them. It was the FBI. On January the 13th, 2006, the three were arrested outside a store where they had purchased household chemicals, presumably for bomb making. None of the three had prior convictions, but McDavid spent 2 years pre-trial in solitary confinement. He also formally declared a hunger strike due to the jail's refusal to provide him with vegan food. At their 2008 trials, Weiner and Jensen both pled guilty and testified against McDavid. His defence contended that he was the victim of entrapment. Basically, entrapment means that he was influenced into doing a crime, and it's not something that he would have done without said influence. But McDavid was convicted in 2007 and sentenced to 20 years in prison. On May 6, 2009, McDavid's attorney filed an appeal. The appeal was denied in 2010, and he served time at Victorville as inmate 16209-097. Weiner and Jensen agreed to testify against McDavid in exchange for plea deals and reduced sentences. McDavid did not testify, but his lawyer stated that Anna was the driving force of the plot and had entrapped him by suggesting that they would have a romantic relationship. Unfortunately, McDavid's lawyer did not have any written evidence to back up this romantic assertion, because the FBI and federal prosecutors failed to disclose the evidence and specifically denied that it existed. McDavid's trial attorney, Mark Rochelle, questioned Anna about whether McDavid had written letters. You believe he had written you love letters? Rochelle asked. A few, yes, Anna conceded. Okay, and we don't have these anymore, correct? No, Anna answered. Correct. And you were still working for the FBI when those disappeared? Correct, Anna replies. Anna conceded only the letters contained a slight indication that he may have been interested in me. In closing arguments, one of the federal prosecutors, Ellen Endrizzi, even poked fun at McDavid's claims of budding romance and missing love letters. Romance? A bit of a red herring, she told the jury. Supposedly Mr. McDavid is falling all over himself for Anna, but you have testimony that Anna rebuffed him. McDavid was convicted and sentenced to 19.5 years in federal prison. The missing evidence and the extent of the government's misconduct in not producing it for the trial would not be revealed until a while later. McDavid's lawyers, friends and family continued to fight for him, filing multiple FOIA requests with the federal government in what seemed a futile effort, until one day in late 2014, the records that the government had said didn't exist were provided to his lawyers. They included emails McDavid had sent to Anna professing his desire for her and a paper trail of the FBI referring those private messages to behavioural psychologists. On January the 8th, 2015, McDavid was released from prison after the FBI admitted it had withheld approximately 2,500 pages of documents potentially useful for his defence. When McDavid and his lawyers discovered that the FBI and federal prosecutors had withheld approximately 2,500 pages of discovery, they negotiated a settlement that allowed for McDavid's release, with the time served in exchange for changing his conviction to a lesser charge of general conspiracy. In a written statement to The Intercept, Executive Assistant US Attorney Philip A. Ferrari said that Of the 2,500 pages of documents not provided to McDavid before his trial, only 11 documents were required to be turned over under the federal rules of evidence. We don't know why these documents were not produced, but we have no information indicating that the failure to do so was anything more than a mistake, Foray said. He also maintained that prosecutors' language in the motion opposing McDavid's request for the government to explain why evidence went missing contained no threats, veiled or otherwise. Anna later testified that she was paid about $65,000 for her undercover work for the FBI. Since McDavid's arrest, she has changed her given name and surname multiple times and moved around the country, public records show. She now lives in a Texas suburb where she purchased a home this year with her new husband, a software engineer. She did not respond to the multiple requests to be interviewed for this story. On her Facebook page, Anna recently posted a photograph commemorating the 9/11 terrorist attacks, as well as a picture of herself dressed as a stormtrooper from Star Wars. McDavid, now 38, is resettled in Northern California, where he lives with family. He attends community college and is attempting to rebuild his life after nearly a decade in prison for a crime that Anna helped the government create. McDavid is adjusting to the newness of telling his life in front of the cameras and crowds. If he holds any anger towards Anna, he doesn't express it, even when invited during the recent interview with the Intercept. Dressed in a tight-fitting t-shirt and baggy blue jeans, he talked about the mounds of mail he received while in prison and how those letters helped him get through 9 long years. "All it takes is a little card," McDavid told the audience. "That's all it takes. A smiley face, a heart and a 25p stamp. That's it." He paused. "Or is a stamp more than that now?" he asked to laughter. "I've been gone for a bit." And that just about concludes the story of Eric McDavid and Anna, the FBI informant. What do you guys think of this case? I mean, was it entrapment? Could this plot have transpired without the help of Anna? I'll leave that for you to decide. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this one. There's other stuff worth watching on the channel if you've got time to. So, thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this one. There's a few other stuff on the channel that you might enjoy if you get the time. But on that note, I will bid you farewell for today. I do upload regular, so if this was something you enjoyed, please consider subscribing and catching the next one. Stay safe out there, guys. Peace!